Hi all, Eric here. I believe that most people are working on becoming the better versions of themselves over time. But how to do that? So many people are wishing to make themselves better in different ways or improve their situation. Maybe you've watched the New Year's go by and you set that resolution and it didn't quite turn out the way you wanted. But it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. And that's what we're going to talk about today is how to design life. Now, in contrast, what I also find is that many of us will actually look around and realize, hey, we got to this spot that we're in and we didn't really do it by design. We did it in what I call by default. When I say living by default, I don't mean that it's always a bad thing. It just means, like most of us, you've probably found yourself having arrived at a certain spot, situation, and said, I didn't plan this, but here I am. That is living life by default. We all have places we do it. Not all of them are bad. But sometimes we may have some of those places where we arrived and found ourselves at a situation we said, that's not the situation I want. I'm looking to improve upon it. So how would you know if you're living a life by default? Well, you probably didn't design it that way. Some examples of how that might look could appear in different places, different ways. I'm just going to give you a few that occurred to me, and you can try on for you how that might look in your world. Perhaps it's in life in general. Any place you might find yourself saying, I don't think I have the time to fill in the blank, whatever that is. It means you've defaulted into a state of busyness where maybe you can create the space but just haven't looked at it. Perhaps it's a routine, a morning routine, an evening routine, and it's not that it's a bad routine, it's just not producing the outcomes you're trying to get to. So you may have to break that up. Perhaps it's in personal finance. Maybe it's the fact that at the end of a month you go, where did all my paycheck go to? And if that's the case, that would be an example perhaps in finance where you're living a little too much by default. Perhaps it shows up in your career life. Maybe it's a matter of you find yourself going to work and going, oh, same thing, different day. Or maybe you sort of look year over year and go, I don't know that I know how to do anything especially better or different than I knew how to do last year. Those might be great examples of where you're living by default rather than by design in your career. It shows up in business all the time as well. If you have teams or an organization, it could be that your org chart feels a little more like an organic chart, meaning it wasn't shaped to create the functional team that's humming along in high performance to create a really awesome outcome. It was just people started doing stuff and you end up building the org chart around what they're already doing. I call that an organic chart rather than an org chart. And then the other one is anytime, and if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I don't love this one. That's just how we've always done things. You don't have to say it in a funny voice, but I don't like that one. I don't care what we've always done. That's the expectations for how things have been done in the past, but we can reshape them. These are all places that tend to suggest that we're probably living life by default. So if these are some of the ways we might find ourselves living by default, how do we do it differently and find ourselves instead living by design? That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. So as you know, I'm all about setting expectations, whether it's in life, finance, career, or business. And if that's the kind of thing that sounds useful and you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe or hit the little bell to be alerted as I post future episodes. Today, I'm really excited because I'm going to light up all of these. I couldn't call it SkētchMap mode if I didn't, well, build you a sketch map. And today we're going to talk about designing your expectations, an action set for how to break out of default routines and instead design something better. To make it as easy as possible for you to design the better version of yourself or the new situation you're trying to produce, I have 3 things I keep in mind whenever I'm looking to live my life by design. The first of these 3 is to pick. Pick something you intend to start or change. Now, by the way, notice I said change rather than stop. It's not very easy for people of the human variety to actually stop doing something they're really used to doing. Stopping habits, stopping practices almost never works. In fact, what usually works much better is to either start something new or to change something you're already doing into something else. The second part is to define. Define what would have to happen for you to call it a success. Now, this is subjective. This is what you say measures success for you. And the third one is assign. What are the things you could do or replace that would actually make this happen? 3 things, super simple. Now, if we take those 3 and we open them out, we can start to create a format that you can use to build your action set. A few things I want you to notice. The first one I already mentioned, which is you may not be able to stop. things you're already doing. You may have to change what it is you're doing. But whatever you end up choosing to start or to change, the next step is to define success for you. Not somebody else's definition, but your definition. And what is the evidence that proves to you you are successful? Almost always it's going to be measured in a quantity of something, the quality of something, or the frequency of something. So for example, it could be as simple as exercise, and it might be, I want to do it daily. That's about frequency. So you would say, I'm exercising daily. It could be that it's not about the exercise, it's about the outcome it produces. Maybe you say, that helps me to lose a certain amount of weight, and you set a goal for yourself. Whatever that is, you're trying to use this space to define it. Now, I've put 6 of them here. It doesn't mean you need to use all 6. And you could need more. You could only need 1 or 2 of them. Whatever works for you. Once you've defined it, now you need to assign it. Assign it the things you need to do in order to make that happen. Now, sometimes people will call these habits, and eventually we do want them to become habits, especially if they're good ones. However, before they can be habits, I find you have to assign them as practices, something you're actually going to do. If it's a one and done event, not a practice. But when it's repeated at some frequency, now it can be a practice. So whatever these things are that you assign yourself to do, if you don't have it in your calendar or your schedule to repeat either daily, that would be a daily practice, weekly as a weekly practice, monthly, and so on, then it's not really a practice. And to help you when you go to assign yourself practices so that you remember that if you don't hit the repeat button in your calendar, it's not a practice, you'll see in the corner here, I've set it up with different types of practices. And so if maybe what you're looking for is a daily practice, you might check this box. Perhaps if what you're looking for is a weekly practice, this one, and monthly, and quarterly, and annual, and so on. Now, what if it's not one of those? It's okay. I've got another box for you right here. And I've got a few of those too, where I can describe a different type of practice, like say, maybe 3 days a week. Expand it out and boom, I've created you a little SkētchMap worksheet that you can actually start using to do your action set for pick, define, assign. A few things I want to highlight on here. So you'll see I've added a couple of elements. One, make sure to date it. I don't care if you date it when it is you created it, or if you decide you want to set this as something you're going to do maybe next quarter or next month when you start. But however you date it, put it there so you have a little timestamp and you know when it is you started this. I found it helpful to look back on these and go, oh, I've been doing this practice for a few years, and I can look back and see because I dated it. The next one is title. Give this thing a name. Every time you create one of these new by design practices you're going to start doing, give it a name. Giving it a name helps you to hold it, at least language-wise, to make sure that you know what it is you're working on. You may have several of these in motion at a time, and I find it exceedingly helpful to give them a name. Whether you're just doing it for yourself so you can mentally refer to it, oh, this is the thing I'm doing, or whether you're working with other people. Maybe you have a few of you that are working on getting in better shape together, and you all have a sheet like this, and you can refer to it by the same title. Another thing I want to point out that I've put on here is small changes over time make a big impact. This is not a go big or go home situation. In fact, go big or go home usually kills these efforts. All these small little incremental changes you can do by design will make you better or more effective over time. The last thing I want to highlight before we jump into some examples is under pick. When you pick, sometimes you can pick things to do, sometimes you're going to pick things you need to learn. And that's going to be an important distinction, because if you don't know how to do something yet, like I don't know what would be success yet because I just don't understand it well enough, or I don't know what to assign myself in the way of practices, then the first thing you might have to do is pick to learn something new. And that might give you the information you need to make a next design into how to do it. And sometimes I'll even in the title put a D and a colon, or I'll put an L and a colon right into it and put the title afterwards just to remind myself I need to learn first, and maybe I'll take a quarter to do that or a month to do that, and then I can define and assign my practices and start doing them. So if you need to make it a two-parter, make sure you do that. Now let me share with you some examples in real life that I've used, and maybe it'll help you figure out how you might be able to make better use of this too. So what you're going to notice is there's the date. I've been doing this one for a long time. You'll also see that when I name stuff, I almost always put the thing I care about right up there in the title. So here it says body-wise, but you'll see in some of the other ones, it says money-wise, career-wise, learning-wise, whatever that is for you. That's just the way I like to name them. I put a little colon there for what it is I want to remember. And when it comes to pick, what I chose to do is start something. In this case, the start was to maintain my strength and flexibility. Since I only needed to maintain, and these were the two things I was trying to measure success by, when I went to go assign what it is I need to do, I learned I didn't need to do that much. In fact, all I had to do was 2 daily practices that took 5 minutes each. 5 minutes of stretches in the morning and 5 minutes of strength training, core stuff. And what you'll notice is I put daily on this one, check that box. And then down here, I don't actually do every day for the exercises, that I rotate out different ones every other day for 6 days of the week. So it doesn't include, for example, Saturday. So I use that little notation down there where I could put some custom values in there. Now the thing is, you think 5 minutes a day can't be that much, except remember how long I've been doing this. So if you add it up, like I rotate in 3 days a week, some push-ups. I do enough push-ups in a year that I do more than 15,000 a year. So when we talk about small changes making a big difference over time, less than 5 minutes, 3 days a week, and I'm doing over 15,000 push-ups. And that's how to live life by design. Not to mention, it answers that secret that everybody's been wondering when they watch me, how did I get so swole? Let me give you another example. This one's not about taking care of my body or my physical health. Instead, you'll see I wrote career-wise and time to learn. That's just how I name mine. So this is in contrast to what we talked about at the beginning, where by default, I couldn't find time to get stuff done, like to learn every day. So I needed to do it by design. It wasn't going to happen by default. So I said, I'm going to produce time in every day to learn continuously. So what did I define once I did that? One, that I wanted time to learn, like read or listen to books, and I wanted time to learn watching and studying each and every day. So what did I do? I do my reading, watching, listening on my exercise machine. I like to do the elliptical, and so every day when I do the elliptical for about 45 minutes, I include the time to have my iPad up there, and I can read, I can study, I can learn. I even create a list of things for the future so that when I have a little inventory of things that I want, I can just get on the exercise machine and say, okay, what is it I need to keep learning? Sometimes it's formal learning, like to get an advanced designation. Other times it's informal learning, like someone literally used some words the day before and I wanted to look into those a little more because I hadn't heard those words before. But what I did know is that doing it by default was not going to work. But doing it by design really does work. By designing it into my every day of the week and having it first thing in the morning when I exercise, when I was tired and got home at the end of a long day, it wasn't at risk. I had already done it. And now I'm kind of getting a twofer. I'm doing my cardio workout in the mornings, and at the same time, I'm learning continuously every day so that I can get ahead in life, finance, career, and business. That works for me because I like to use my mornings that way. But maybe you're a night owl, and maybe you do the same thing, but it works better for you at night. Here's one I'm actually in the midst of doing, and this one's also career-wise, and it's a CRM. I just said CRM it, but the point is I realized I need a new one because what I got to do is I got to figure out how to learn to adapt to a new CRM system. And how do I define my success? I define it in two ways. One, that I can be able to track the workflows of my keynote and V-note speaking, as well as my workflows for my initiatives. I need to be able to automate those. And then I also need to automate reports and contracts and payments. So this is something I'm working on. Now, I only needed these two, so just like I told you before, if you want to cross out these other numbers and you only need 2 spots, use 2 spots. Next, I had to assign my practices. Now, I didn't actually know how to calendar it right away and start doing it. So you'll see the first one I have here is first I need to quantify it. And by quantifying it, what I mean is I want to do my research and discovery. And I figured that would take me about a week. So in 1 week, 5 times 45 minutes, by the way, using that continuous learning time in the mornings, I can research out what it is I need to do in the CRM system and make sure that I have an understanding, and then I can calendar it. And I think that I can calendar it in 1 week with 3 sessions of 45 minutes. And then lastly, I can start doing it. So as soon as I've got those 2 things done, now I can hold myself to putting this by design into place so that I can coordinate and automate these different workflows for myself in a CRM. Here's another real example. This one, money-wise, things that I was concerned about when I was trying to figure out how to save more money for my future. And so what you have here is saving money from going out to eat. Now, I have nothing against going out to eat. In fact, some of the best times we have are going out to eat. But what I noticed is I was doing it by default, not by design. And so the deal was this: if I were to go out to eat and go to some of the places we'd go with a family of 5 and it was $20 each plus tax and tip, it could be like $150. Well, if I was committed to $150 for dinner, what was I accomplishing? What was my definition of success for going out to eat? And so I realized I had a few of them. One was that I didn't want any cooking. We didn't want to have any cleanup. Certainly we wanted to eat something satisfying. We wanted some family time. We wanted some fun. Now, maybe that could be handled by going out to eat, and sometimes we do that. Other times we could design another way to do it, and that's what we did. We found that if instead what we did is we assigned ourselves an option to say, hey, what if everyone goes out and we all get our own sub at the sub place and everyone gets to pick their own sub? They seemed just as happy that there was no cooking for us, no cleaning up, no concern for satisfying their appetite. And then what we did is we said, let's bring those home, add some of our snacks, maybe some pretzels and drinks we already had at the house, and instead, let's play a board game together. And now we actually found that we took better time for our family and had more fun than just going out to eat and sitting around a table. And I know it sounds crazy, but that actually ended up saving, instead of $125, $150 for going out to eat, it was $30 to get everybody a foot-long or half-foot-long sub to their liking. And then we'd bring that back and we'd play board games. In fact, the amount we saved in just one time of going out at the more expensive place, we actually could buy 3, 4, 5 board games to choose from for when we came home. This worked really great when our kids were younger and saved us a fair bit of money. Another parenting one from when my kids were younger, in the money-wise category, was under kids' recreation. We noticed we were sending our kids to these little gym events where they'd run around and just do fun things and flip around and run, and other kids were there and they'd all laugh, and we'd sit in a little room watching them and just sit there, wait for like a half-hour, and then I'd get the bill on a per-kid basis, and it was like $100. I'm like, wow, this is really adding up. And all I'm doing is sitting here. Now, I was doing work and it felt like it was productive, but I thought to myself the same thing. Could I do something different that saves money from these recreational classes, but still takes care of what it is I wanted to take care of? And so I didn't want to take the fun away from the kids. So defining success was, certainly I wanted the kids to have exercise and wanted them to have fun. Could I design something else, though, rather than default into doing this, what we were doing already, that cost us so much more money? And in this case, what I found we could assign is, turns out I could just pick up a soccer ball and go into the backyard or the local park and just play with them. And it was very easy. And I got an extra bonus, which was, it was also good for me too. And so for a long time, we just set up some makeshift goals and we'd run around and the kids would have a great time. And I'd save a couple $100 a month that I could put towards my financial future. It was a big deal. And any place you could find where you're defaulting into spending money, and all you have to do is inspect it a little bit and define, why is it I do that? What makes that successful? And could I assign myself new practices to be in that could still create that same level of success, but now do it in a different way so that I can achieve a new outcome? Pick, define, assign. Super simple way of living your life by design rather than default. If you found this useful and you want to go a little bit deeper, 2 books that I found really helpful on the subject are The Power of Habit, where Charles Duhigg takes it into a psychological, what's happening in our brain kind of world to understand the triggers and mechanisms that cause people to be in habits and to change them. Another book that I found really helpful is Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg, where he takes this entire taxonomy of what kind of situation the person's in, what type of person is it, and what's the likely type of habits that would incrementally change people successfully. And both of these books are terrific, and I'll include the affiliate links if you want to go grab them on Amazon down below in the description. And then of course there's the SkētchMap worksheet that I created that I showed you today. If that's the kind of thing you'd like to access, I have it for free for you on my website, and the link is down below in the description. I've used this for many years. If you decide you want to download it and use it with other people, especially if you're the kind of person that wants to do things as a group so you have more support systems to help you change or start something new. Feel free to share it. See if it works for you as a practice. I sure hope it does. And that's TVT by default versus by design. Use what we've created here to break out of the normal default routines and start designing something even better. If you found this video helpful and haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, like, or share. And until next time, set expectations.